All right. Welcome, parents and guardians of class of 2026. I'm Stephen Russell. I'm one of the college counselors here. With me tonight is Erin Camden, and not with us, but part of our team is our newest college counselor, Taylor Cipolla. She is actually right now en route to the NACAC, the National Association of College Admissions Counseling annual conference out in Columbus, Ohio. So best wishes to her. Wish she could introduce herself, but we wanted to get her to this conference, so off we go. Erin's going to be back in a few minutes when it's kind of her section of the presentation. But tonight we are going to take you all through the kind of the college focused start to senior year, right? So the goal here is to make sure that you as parents know what your roles are in supporting your seniors as they are navigating the first few weeks of and months of senior year, the college admissions process, and getting a good start to this school year and being well supported there. So let's get into the agenda, and I'll kind of clarify a few things as we go. So agenda tonight, we're going to cover a lot of ground. This is going to be, I think we're going to be done probably in about, an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes. We're going to talk about some big ideas. We're going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the college process. We're going to talk about applications. We're going to talk about standardized testing. We're going to get you guys into sort of the ins and outs of letters of recommendation, scholarships. We're going to cover some scholarship and financial aid stuff, but there's more to come on that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Just some notes as we're looking at the agenda. Make sure that you're using the Q&A if you have questions. You might hold off for a moment as you are kind of formulating your question, because we are trying to preempt some of those questions. So hopefully we're going to be able to cover it during our presentation. But if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A. And at the end of the presentation, Erin and I are going to go through those questions, make sure that you guys are feeling good about where you're at with all of this, right? And again, we are recording this presentation, so if you missed anything, or just want to relive this this whole experience, it's going to be on the Blanchette counseling page, I think college counseling page, hopefully by end of day tomorrow. So if you missed something and you want to go back to it, that's where it's going to live. And then just kind of like the overall idea here is we met with your seniors on Monday, and we gave them essentially the same presentation. We're doing it a little bit differently, mostly just because of our audience, but we're giving you and your seniors the same information so that you guys can be on the same page as you are working your way through the next couple of weeks and months. So with that in mind, this first section of our never mind. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to explain how our whole new college counseling process works. So who's doing what now is the title of this slide, because we have something of a new program, right? In the past, we've had school counselors have done school counseling and college counseling, academic counseling, personal social counseling, all in one place. And this over the summer, we finalized our split into school counselors, college counseling. So again, Erin, myself, and Taylor are your college counselors. And while we're working with students across all 4 grade levels, obviously the bulk of our time and resources are going to be spent on seniors. And then eventually, as we move into this next part of the admission cycle, we're going to be focusing on juniors, and then sophomores and freshmen. It's going to be a lot more group work, some individual advising, but a lot of more like group activities in freshman and sophomore year. School counselors are Shannon Fleming Bray, Brian Mullen, and Heather Rabe. You'll recognize those names and faces. They've been around for a few years now, but we've divided up the alphabet so that each student has 1 school counselor and 1 college counselor, right? So you've got kind of 2 counselors in your corner. So if you have a senior who is maybe thinking about how to do a little bit better in their math class, or maybe they are struggling with some of the kind of social and emotional adjustments to senior year, or transitioning out of high school, we still have the school counselors. We still have Caitlin Overman, who's our social emotional counselor and works with more targeted student in a more targeted way with students who need that additional level of support. And our international students are going to be working with Jana Valenzuela Carden as they have been, and she does all of their school counseling and all of their college counseling. And most importantly, we've got Janice Mooring, who still supports college counseling. Her office is still in the, she works in the school counseling office. I don't know if you guys can really see much of my background. Right now, I am in our brand new college counseling center at Blanchette. Really excited about this. The administration did a lot to make this office happen over the summer, in addition to all of the other construction that was going on, and we were able to move in. Felt like kind of a whirlwind coming back to campus this fall because we didn't have anywhere to work, so we were kind of floating around waiting for our office to be done, and now we've moved in, and I still have some space on the wall where I need to put some things, but it's a really cool space. Seniors are loving it. They have a lot of good things to report about, being able to utilize this space and have it be just for college counseling, right? And the stuff that they're most focused on right now. So we're really excited. We're getting into it. And this is kind of it's a transitional year, but I think in terms of the work that we're able to do with the students right now, your seniors, really be able to focus on them in their process has been really a lot of fun. So really excited about that. So let's kind of get into some big ideas. So if you've had a senior before in the last like 4 or 5 years, you might have heard this little spiel from me, but I want to talk a little bit about what a parent's role is at this stage of the process. We've got seniors who are, they're pretty busy, they're pretty stressed. There's a lot going on, and we want to make sure that you guys are kind of thinking about how you are going to support them as they move into kind of this pretty stressful time of year here. So I think the big thing is remembering as parents, this isn't your process, right? This is your senior's process. Oh my gosh, everything's flying around here. This is your senior's process. This isn't yours, right? So we kind of have to give up a little bit of that as we parent our kids through this this journey. So we just kind of keep that in the back of our mind. This is their process. They are experiencing kind of this growth phase. I have a sophomore at Blanchette right now. She just finished driver's ed, and I saw what kind of experience learning how to drive was for her. I really think about that when I think about the college admissions process for a senior, right? These are places where they are learning new things. They are learning new skills. They're learning how to interact with adults in their lives that they haven't really had a chance to work with yet, whether it's their college counselor, whether it's a college admissions person, whether it's somebody else supporting them in the admissions process. We want to make sure that they're experiencing that growth for themselves, right? And with that in mind, if you as a parent are doing their work for them, you're taking that opportunity away, right? So even if it's something that you think is fairly simple, whether that's writing an essay or supporting them too much, maybe in that essay, right? Maybe it's jumping in and emailing people that they need to be emailing, communicating with departments or people that they need to be doing where they need to do that work. You're actually taking something away from them, right? So we want to make sure that we're putting that front and center, that they are the ones who are developing those skills, exercising those muscles, and learning how to do that kind of work, right? So I think one thing I like to kind of pause and think about a little bit too, as we're sort of thinking about where we are in this time, is sort of this tension between what is the best possible outcome of this process, and then what's the best next step for my student. For if I'm talking to a senior, what's the best next step for them, right? And some of that's kind of born out of these conversations we've been having post-pandemic, right, where people felt like their options have been changed or reduced from when they started high school, like pre-pandemic. But I think a lot of that's still changing as we are encountering some pretty big shifts and changes to the higher education landscape, right? So sometimes it's not necessarily going to be focused on that long-term ultimate destination, but really wanting to come into what's the best next step for your student. and helping support them along that way, right? So sometimes that takes a little bit of a reframe. Sometimes we're having that reframe in the fall of senior year. Sometimes that reframe happens in the spring of senior year, right? When students are deciding what ultimately they're going to be doing after high school. So that's kind of that we want to keep coming back to that. What is the best next step for my student? So supporting students, support should look like empowerment, right? Helping them move towards greater stability, independence, and acknowledging those difficulties, right? This is a stressful experience. It's college admissions, right? This is how it works. But what we kind of say in our office is we're not going to be able to remove the stress of applying to college and having to balance all of these things, but we want to keep that at a reasonable level, right? And I kind of think that's sort of how, as a parent, we want to be thinking about this too. Your job is not to eliminate those difficulties and stressors, but to acknowledge them and help support around them, right? So as they are learning to overcome these obstacles, managing fears, building confidence, those are all skills that they are learning. These are muscles they're exercising, and that's exactly what we want to see as this growth experience for them at this stage of high school. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about support and enabling, and I have to tell you from a counseling perspective, whether it's this cohort of parents, or maybe it's the students kind of becoming more, I think, like leaning into this process a little bit more. I haven't seen as much enabling behaviors as I have maybe like 10, 15 years ago, but we still do see it. And I think that's kind of where we want to make sure that we're not, when we're talking about supporting versus enabling, we're kind of focusing in on these things. I'm not going to go through each one of these things, but I think the big one when we're talking about college is not wanting to necessarily shield students from natural consequences, especially when we get to things like deadlines, especially when we get to things like, kind of the outcome of the effort they're putting into this process. Those are the things that, like, sometimes those things happen. If you feel like we're kind of going down this road and the student isn't getting the kind of support that they need, whether that's like through like healthy coping skills, or whether it's they're not getting support from school, those are things that we want to have conversations around. We want to make sure that we're not putting up barriers around their growth by doing too much for them, right? So how can we tell how we can support students? Oh my gosh, sorry. What kind of things are we doing here? So I think we want to be thinking about like mental health a little bit more as a support that parents can provide, help them figure out how to sleep, right? And I know of like, maybe you're thinking like, okay, we're finally at the end of high school and are we going to really worry about that? Yeah, I think we should, right? There are a lot of times as seniors are becoming way more independent. We start to lose track of things like sleep, nutrition, maybe getting a little too focused on the social stressors, not dealing well with illness, right? That stuff happens. It's a contributing factor to stress. It's a contributing factor to low and struggling, like students struggling with mental health as they move through this process. So trying to help focus on those things, like what are those basic needs? How can we identify and come up with solutions early? That's a great place for parents to be, especially as we're thinking about launching them, right? So a lot of you guys are probably also thinking like, my student's going to be out of the house next year. How is this going to work? And starting to coach through how are they going to take care of themselves in some of those fundamental basic ways that maybe they haven't really thought that much about yet, right? And kind of focusing on things between can and can't. How are they thinking about where they're running into these roadblocks? Validate those feelings, move forward, looking for wiggle room, looking for compromise, right? Helping them with that kind of like, again, they're still developing that frontal cortex, still thinking about like, okay, what's the future going to look like? You can do that a lot better than they can. And you can use your, that front part of your brain that's fully developed, right? And use that as a kind of a way to support your students, okay? So in the admissions process, so where does this come to the reality of the application process? Things are getting stressful. You feel like there's a lot at stake. Try to keep this process in perspective, right? So again, you've got this, you can see into the future, right? You've got the fully developed executive functioning. You can see those things coming down the road that your student can't, and you can help keep that process in perspective. Again, resist doing what your student can do for themselves, And those especially are little things, right? So often I get a lot of communication from parents and they say, hey, my student's really busy. Can I just shoot you this email with a question? And I know that you think like, hey, I'm coming in and I'm going to, fix a problem my student has by substituting myself for their work. Please resist the urge to do that. There might be a place where you need to do something kind of along those lines, but really resist the urge to do it. Can they do this for themselves? Are they capable of doing this for themselves? Help them plan their time, help them carve out space to do those kinds of things. But again, make sure that they're doing that stuff. Make sure they're taking responsibility for their part, right? If you feel like you're dragging them through this, that might be something to acknowledge and talk about, but you want to encourage them to be in the driver's seat. That's a big focus for us. We talk about that a lot with our seniors. We talk a lot about that a lot with our juniors, right? We want to make sure that you guys you're in the passenger seat. Maybe you're even in the back seat of the passenger seat. They need to be in the driver's seat. They need to be the one taking that responsibility. Making sure, especially, and I can't stress this enough, when you and your student might need to reach out to a college admissions office, make sure that the student's the one that does it, right? So if there's a question specifically for a college, make sure that your student's the one reaching out to the college. The only exception to that is maybe with the financial aid process, right? You guys are all a big part of how your senior is going to be planning to pay for college in one way or the other. So you want to that might be something where you are going to be a little bit more involved, but that could be it, right? So if you're going to call the financial aid office and ask a question, that might be fine, right? But if you're calling the admissions office, don't, right? Have your student send an email, help them write the email, help them make the phone call. Admissions reps love it when they're talking to students. They do keep track of who's communicating with their office. They will see on their dashboard for communication with an applicant, student contact, parent contact, parent contact, parent contact, parent contact, right? That's not great, okay? So again, and from a growth mindset, you don't want to be in that situation, right? You want your senior to be the one taking control of those things. And then, right, if there are questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to your student's college counselor. You can reach out to their school counselor too, right? If you feel like it's more of a school counseling thing, academic, social and emotional. If it's a college question, obviously you're going to talk to the student's college counselor. You're welcome to reach out. But again, we want to make sure that our students are the ones coming in. What we told the seniors at orientation and on Monday is we want to be the first to hear from you, right? So if there's a question and the student comes in and has that conversation with us, and we still have, maybe there's still disagreement, maybe there's we're not on the same page, maybe that's where a parent might need to be involved. Maybe we'll have to have a meeting. I don't know, not super common, but does happen at this stage. But that's kind of where a parent might reach out to the student's college counselor, or again, school counselor too. Okay. So let's see here. I think this is my last slide. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about what colleges are looking at. So we're going to get into detail on some of these things. I'm just going to kind of touch on a few of these things. But, I think a lot of the questions that come up right now as students are getting into the actual applications, it's starting to fill things out and thinking like, okay, what am I actually telling a college I'm doing? How is this looking to them? We want to talk a little bit about what that review process might look like at a college. So first off, we have, I think there's a whole other slide on test scores. So I'm going to leave a little bit of this kind of out there, but generally test scores are optional. We are seeing some colleges come back to requiring a test score. You always want to make sure or help your student make sure that they are checking the college's website to see exactly what is required in the way of test scores. But again, still broadly test optional. A lot of seniors, or not a lot, a handful of seniors are still taking those tests. Maybe they took one over the weekend. Maybe they're taking the October SAT or ACT. They might even be thinking about that November SAT or ACT. But we also get into the point here where maybe they've taken one or maybe they haven't, and they've decided, I'm done, I'm not going to take it. That's totally fine too. So we're having some of those conversations with seniors as we're meeting with them this fall, and maybe they're done. That'll be totally fine, right? Again, we're going to touch on test scores a little more in depth here in a few minutes. I do want to talk about holistic review. So broadly, colleges that are, somewhat selective, meaning they're not just admitting anybody that graduated from high school, but they've got, maybe some like more specific or higher admissions criteria, they're going to be doing what's called a holistic review, right? And that means that they're not just going to be looking at grades and test scores. They're actually going to be looking at the entirety of the application. So they want to see, that's why they look at students' activity list. That's why they want to read the essay, right? The student's personal statement. They're going to be thinking about, how does this student fit into my campus from a personality standpoint, from an interest standpoint. So that's really where, as we're kind of coming into the sort of finalizing the applications, that's the stuff that actually really does matter, right? Quality of writing really does matter. How a student presents their high school experience really does matter. They are going to be looking at grades, right? They're going to be comparing that student's GPA, broadly to what is, or not broad, their GPA. They're going to be looking at the student's academic history, right? Their rigor, what classes they've taken, how many years of math, how many years of science, have they taken honors and AP courses? And that kind of factors into that weighted versus unweighted GPA. So a number of years ago, we added a weighted GPA to our transcript in order to provide more context for colleges when they're evaluating the student's rigor, right? So it balances out, how challenging that course was with the student's grade in that course. So that's a pretty big factor too, right? Rigor and how it is then reflected in a weighted versus unweighted GPA actually kind of does matter. One thing about GPA that I think we talk a lot about when we're advising students, but I think kind of gets lost a little bit, but I think is important to think about right now, is the students are going to be adding their grades into, whether it's the common application or maybe there's some other applications that will require them to actually take their transcript and put it into the application. So I have to copy their grades over into my application. And colleges are doing that because they're actually going to be recalibrating and resorting their transcript. Okay. And this is going to look different for different colleges. They all do it a little bit differently. And you're not really going to have transparency into that as an applicant. That's okay. But they are going to be looking more specifically at, how did the student do in math? And they're just going to look at their math scores or grades. They're going to look at their English grades. They're going to look at their science grades, languages grades, and really break that stuff out and probably do a GPA recalculation. But that Blanchette, the overall weighted versus unweighted GPA, is still going to be a factor as well, right? So they're really trying to get, again, when we're talking holistically, they're trying to get the big picture of the student. They also have the school context, right? So that's kind of where, the students' letters of recommendation come into play. We're going to talk about those there in a little bit. They do acknowledge where that student goes to high school, right? The fact that we are a college prep high school with high level rigor in our academics does make a difference when colleges are looking at our applicants. And then again, we talked about the essay. There is, I think the essay is still pretty important. I think a lot of people are kind of wringing their hands about AI in essay writing, and we've told the students this, but don't use it in your college essay. Colleges are very good at sniffing that stuff out. The best essays that we read are ones that are written by the students. We can support them in that. We definitely have the bandwidth to support students in essay writing. English teachers are going to help with that. Hopefully you as parents are going to help with that. So we just want to make sure that you guys are kind of, again, knowing kind of what this picture looks like. What are we working our way towards? How are colleges looking at our students? And I think ultimately what we want to be thinking about is, from the college's perspective, they're not just thinking of, I want to admit the best students possible to my university. They are focused on creating the best possible class to admit, right? And those might sound kind of the same, but actually they can be a little bit different, right? So we want to be kind of thinking about that from their perspective. And that's kind of where we, kind of come back to holistic review, come back to how are they looking at students, what's important, and why. Okay, so we're going to go into some of these in a little bit more detail. I'm going to kick it over to Erin, and I'll let her go from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everyone. We are going to move on to some items on what we are specifically doing with students currently. So right now, college counselors are meeting one-on-one with all of our seniors. We are talking about everything post Blanchette. So whatever that may be, whatever their ideas are, we are having those discussions. We are also helping them with their applications. So questions that they have on the Common App, um, important information to help them complete their application. The Common App asks them some specific questions, so we've developed an application basics sheet for them to help them answer those questions. We'll also be, during that meeting, adding schools to their applying list in Maya. So only college counselors can add colleges and move them over from that considering list to the applying list. And we do that so that your students have to meet with us to tell us where they're applying so that we can talk to them about each school and make sure nothing is missed. For example, does the school need a teacher letter, a counselor letter? What is the deadline? So that's why we make it so that only college counselors can add to the applying list. So encourage your students to be checking their applying list after they have their meeting and just making sure it matches up with all the schools that they actually are applying to. Unfortunately, it doesn't just move schools from their Common App to their applying list. So making sure they both look the same is really helpful. We don't want to miss sending a transcript somewhere. So basically, if you look at your students' applying list after they meet with us, and there's a school that your student is applying to that's not on there, that means that school is not receiving a transcript. So send your student in, make sure that applying list is accurate. We also have college visits that actually start tomorrow. So we have over 80 colleges that are coming to Blanchette this fall. We showed your students how to sign up for those visits, but if you want to remind them, they sign up on Maya. They have to sign up 24 hours in advance, and this is a mandatory registration. We plan our location for the event based on how many students sign up for the meeting. If it's a bigger group, then we need to find a different space. We all won't fit in the College Counseling Center. So we do have a deadline of 24 hours ahead of time to sign up for that visit. They can always sign up for a visit and then change their RSVP that they can no longer make it. That is completely fine. They can look ahead and see all the colleges that are coming. Just remind them that schools are still being added. So this list will change. So check back regularly, maybe on a Sunday. That could be a to-do list item that they just hop onto Maya under the events tab, look at the colleges that are coming for the week and sign up. Sometimes students say to us, my teacher won't let me come to the meeting, or I have a test, or I'm out sick, and they get kind of worried that they're missing that time with that rep. Don't worry. The reps know they are students first, and priority is to be in the classroom. So if they cannot come to the meeting for whatever reason, in Maya, it lists the admissions representative's email and name. So the student could always grab that email, and remember, the students would be the one to send this. They could send that rep an email and simply say, I had a test today. I'm sorry I missed your visit when you came to Blanchette. Is there a way for us to connect at a later time? Are you holding any other events in Seattle? Most of the time, the reps, like if it's an out of state school, the reps will come to the Seattle area for a week or so. So usually they'll hold evening presentations downtown Seattle or in Bellevue to give more opportunities to connect. So please tell your students not to worry if they can't come to the meeting. A nice email to the rep, I think, would show, a lot of maturity and that they care about this process so that they can connect with that rep at a later time. Okay, a little bit about college tests. Like Stephen said, many schools are test optional, which means it is up to your student whether they submit a test score or not. I always recommend, since there have been changes this year with schools becoming not test optional and requiring the test again, especially some Southern schools, some Ivies, are back requiring test scores. I recommend getting onto either admissions pages or you can check in Maya whether the college is test optional or not. Just a good idea before submitting applications to make sure your student has everything that they need. Um, and then test blind, I just want to explain that would be that a school does not accept a test score at all. So the UCs, for example, if you send a score, they're not going to pull that data. So we don't even need to waste our money sending that test score from College Board's website. If your student has any questions about, should I send my test score, should I not, please send them to us. This is a great opportunity for them to connect with their college counselor. It is really college specific. So in Maya, if you click on a university, you can view data about that college and see the average test score that that college would like to see. We always encourage students, if you have a test score and you're in the 50% that the college shares or above percent of test scores, go ahead and send your score to that college. If for some reason you are below that 50%, it's really not worth paying to send a test to a test optional school. Let your GPA speak for itself. So students get to decide whether they send their score or not. Maybe they're sending it to a couple colleges and then not sending it to a couple colleges. They get to decide. So please, any questions about that, send them in. Just a note on merit awards. So that is scholarship money that your student would receive based on their GPA or their test scores. Colleges will share, they have to share the GPA requirement and the test score cutoff for the money that they would award a student. So let's say a student has a lower GPA, but a pretty decent test score. If they send that test score in, it could bump them up a level of money that they would receive based on that test score. So always a good idea. Check admissions pages, see how colleges are handling merit money and awards to see, should I send my test score to have it help me get more money? And again, colleges do require these scores to come directly from the testing companies. Colleges will not accept a score from us. So we do not send SAT or ACT scores. The student has to log into their College Board account or ACT student and add the colleges that they want to receive the scores. They can also self-report it in the Common App, but in the end, it officially needs to come from College Board or ACT student. Again, any questions about testing? Do I send? Do I not send? Please send your students in to talk to us. Okay, so the college process. November is a big month as that is typically November 1 is the most common early deadline for colleges. So our office gets pretty busy on Halloween, just making sure everyone has what they need. We always encourage students, don't wait until Halloween to submit your application. If you have to, it's fine, but we want to try to alleviate that last minute stress. So it is only the middle of September. We have plenty of time. Help your student stay organized, maybe over the weekend, have a goal. We're going to accomplish these 2 tasks in the Common App. There's ways to make it not so overwhelming. I think that's a really great way that parents can help the students throughout this process not feel so overwhelmed. But there's basically 2 early deadlines. One is called early action. This simply means that your student is applying early. Most Blanchette students, I say, complete this early action application because they're just ready to go. Their Common App is done, their essays are done, and a benefit is that you get your admissions decision a lot sooner. So if you haven't maybe visited some of the schools that you've applied to, if you get accepted, you'll have time in the spring to do some traveling before you make a final decision. Even with an early acceptance, an early action acceptance, the student still has until May 1st, which is the National College Decision Day, to make a decision. So even though they get their decision early, they don't need to tell the college whether they're attending or not until May 1. Early decision is a little bit different. This is a binding decision of acceptance with that university. So, with an early decision, if the student gets accepted to that university, they are attending. So, they are to withdraw all their other applications. So, they can't wait to see what another college is going to say to them. So, early decision really needs to be discussed as a family and keep the college counselor in the loop. With early decision, you want to make sure you've done that net price calculator on the college's website. You kind of have an idea on how much it's going to cost you. You've had that talk with your student. Okay, we can make this work. Let's do the early decision to this college because if you get in, you can attend. Again, the college counselor needs to know about this early decision. We have a document that we have to sign off on that goes with your student's application that says that we had a conversation with them and that they understand what early decision means and the binding acceptance that it entails. There's also another, your student can't accidentally click early decision in Common App, so don't worry. There is another piece that they have to fill out on the Common App that says that they talked to a parent, that everyone is on the same page. Now, you can only do an early decision application to one school. So that's why like having a conversation with the school counselor or college counselor, sorry, to make sure we know the decision that your student is doing. Most competitive students will apply either early action or early decision. An early decision application could give you a little bump in your admissions, in that the college knows, well, if we accept you, you're attending. So they have a number in their class. Again, if your student has any questions about early decision, early action, the others would be like regular decision, please come send them to their college counselor. So the common application, it's kind of like it says, it's a common application. So it's the most commonly one used. There's over 1,000 colleges that are a part of it. The nice thing is you complete this application once and you send it to every college that is a part of it. Each college is going to have additional essays, maybe that your student will respond to, but that general bulk of information, so the classes they've taken, their grades, their demographic information, that is only filled out once. Whereas if your student did every college's individual application, they're writing the same thing 7 to 10 times, however many colleges they're applying to. I've said this a few times, but I think it's really important to always look at those admissions pages of colleges' websites just to make sure you know everything that is required to submit and to have a complete application. If the common application is available for that college, we recommend to use it. It streams nicely with Maya. That's how we send our documents. It's easier for the student. They only have to do it once. Colleges do not have a preference. So many colleges have several different ways you can apply, the Common App being one of them, maybe their own application. They could also have a coalition application. If Common App is ever the option, we tell students, please default to the Common App. It will be easier for you. Just some tips. that we tell our students. So deadlines can be different. They may have some November 1s, they may have November 15th, they may have January. Work backwards. So in the Common App, complete that general Common App essay first and the general Common App questions, but then do your November 1s first. Get those submitted. Then do your November 15th. The University of Washington, for example, has their own essay. Work on that. Then you can move on. It'll just help make it seem a lot less stressful. Please tell them to write down their account information, their usernames and passwords. We do not have access to their personal Common App accounts, so have them write down their usernames and passwords. When they click submit in the Common App, to every college, they're going to get an email from that college with a link to complete a portal for that college where they can view their admissions decision and their application status. So, depending how many colleges they apply to, they're going to have a username and password for each of those colleges. So really important to write those passwords down so that it's easy for them to log into that portal and see, okay, I can see Gonzaga received my application. They received my transcript. They received my letter of recommendation. Nothing is missing. My application's complete. I'm good for them. Now I can wait. The college in that portal will say if anything is missing. So that's how they know that they've submitted everything for that school. And please encourage your students to check their email regularly. It's just the world we live in these days with email, and that is how the colleges will respond to them. They will not contact us with any questions or if anything's missing. They will contact the student directly. So really, really important to stay up to date with emails. Okay, reminder again, if Common App is an option, please use the Common App. Colleges do not have a preference. Some colleges might say on their admissions page, or if your student attends a visit or goes on a campus tour, they might give them a code for a free application. Just know that that code and that free application, they can also apply for free on the Common App. So they don't have to use that college's individual application to receive that free submission. They can do that also on the Common App. If an application is not on the Common App, there are some colleges that have their own application only. It's usually pretty quick of an application. The students can even upload their unofficial transcript usually. But if a student does not use the Common App and teacher or counselor forms are required, it's really important to follow all the instructions. This is why we meet with your student and we add the schools to the applying list. And we ask them just to confirm, are you applying using Common App? Are you using their own application? Just to make sure documents get sent correctly. Because if that stuff is mixed up, something's not going to get there. So communication is really key with college counselor and then student with admissions offices. Okay, a little bit about the college essays. We met with your students last spring before we headed off to summer to kind of get them started on their general Common App essay. We showed them some videos. Have them start their draft if they haven't already on that main Common App essay. Each college that they apply to may have additional essays for them to reply to. So the more colleges that they apply to, it may be many essays that they have to write, depending. So helping them stay organized with all these essays would be helpful. You want to make sure that your student, when they're writing the essays, is answering the prompt. I say don't reinvent the wheel. If one school has an essay prompt, that's the same as another school, use that same essay. Don't rewrite it. The only place you need to be careful is if a college asks a specific question that has to do maybe with their particular university. For example, why did you like Santa Clara? Or why do you want to attend Santa Clara? Hopefully that's different than why you want to attend UW. So you want to make sure those kind of questions are unique and that your student really researched that college. But if it's a general essay and you can reuse the essays you've written, please do. Encourage your student to get feedback from multiple people. College counselors are here. If they just share their essay with us in a Google Doc, we'll give feedback. I know our English teachers also encourage students to share their feedback. A parent or an aunt or someone could look at the essay. You don't want to have too many hands on the essay that it changes the tone. We want to make sure it's a mostly 18, 17, 18-year-old student voice. We don't want it to be a parent voice or a college counselor voice. So not too many feedback options, but definitely get that proofread. I did just want to plug the college essay guy at the bottom of this slide as a resource. We did a couple of his activities with your students in the spring last year, and they really liked it. So the college essay guy, you just Google college essay guy. You can even go to YouTube. He has hundreds of videos that your students can watch from brainstorming sessions to specific college prompt help, a bunch of free resources on his YouTube channels or on the website that I would encourage your student to check out if they're like, I don't know where to start on writing this particular essay. Really great resource. Okay, so Maya is our college planning tool that we use. Hopefully you have seen it last year when you had your meeting with us. But students can do a lot of things on Maya. So for senior year, they're going to be linking their common application to Maya so that everything is connected, as that's how we send documents to colleges on the counseling side is through Maya. We help them with this account matching when we have our one-on-one meeting. This is where they will request letters of rec from their teacher. So we will help them with that as well. We will add the schools to their applying list and we will do the official letter request with them that tells their teachers what colleges to send their letters to. We do this with them because some schools are very specific in that they may only allow one teacher letter to go, but your student asked two teachers because most of their other schools allow two letters. So this is where we talk to the student and ask them whose letter do you want to go so that we do the right request for that teacher. Many of your students completed the transcript release last year, but we're going to make sure that they completed that document. It just gives us permission to send their transcript to colleges and release that information. Again, this is where they will sign up to meet with college reps that visit Blanchette. We actually have in our new space, it's really exciting. We have a gigantic picture frame TV right outside. If you ever are on campus, check it out. We have a scrolling calendar of visits and that are coming up, and then the college's logo next to it. I've seen even freshmen and sophomores walk by and be like, oh, like Marquette's coming. That's really cool. So have your student check out that to see what reps are coming for the week and then to sign up on Maya. They can also access many resources. You also received a logon to Maya, previously Maya Learning. So you have access to this stuff as well, but the resources tab in Maya has some really good documents from essay writing help to local scholarships that your students can apply for when that time comes, college specific application guidelines. For example, how do we apply to the University of Washington? It can be a little unique sometimes depending on the major your student is applying. How do I fill out the UC application? We have a link on there to YouTube videos on how to fill out each section of the UC application, because that can be a little confusing as well, and much more. So if your student ever struggles, maybe check out that resource tab to see if the answer's on there. But yeah, send them in. All Stephen Taylor and I are doing is college counseling, which is really exciting. So we are more available to students to pop in, get help, ask questions. So if you see them at home and they're asking you all these questions, give them a little encouragement to come in and see us. It helps develop that relationship too. And then, we hope they come tell us where they end up deciding to go. It's a really exciting time. It's stressful right now. Spring will be exciting. Then there might be a little bit more stress prior to May 1 when they have to make a final decision. But the three of us love doing college counseling, so encourage them to come talk to us. Letters of rec. I'm not going to spend a long time on this. This is just suggested deadlines for students to request letters from their teacher. Teachers and counselors, we are writing these letters outside of our general working time, most likely. So giving enough time to write the best letter so we're not rushed is really helpful. If your student has not checked in with their teacher, so a lot of students asked a teacher junior year to write a letter because we wanted to give teachers an opportunity to write over the summer if they wanted. If your student has not talked to that teacher since spring of last year, please encourage them just to go have a quick conversation and say, I'd still love for you to write my letter. I haven't met with my college counselor yet, so you don't have the official request from Maya, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. I have a November 1 deadline. The teachers would love that. So then they can start writing their letter prior to the student meeting with us and doing that official request. Some teachers may want some information from your student. So again, that's why having that early communication with the teacher and that check-in right now of, I'd love you to write my letter still. My deadline's November 1. Do you need anything from me? Many teachers have a little questionnaire that they need to fill out. Some are just like, I'm good, I don't need anything. So send your students to their teachers this week just to do a check-in to see if anything's needed. Some students are asking one teacher, perfectly fine. Some students may have a secondary teacher that they want to ask. Definitely not more than two. Colleges will not accept more than two, most likely. So 2 teachers is the max. And again, we will help them decide which teachers to send should we need to. So like I said, do your research and we can help the students. We go through this when we add their college to their applying list. We talk about how many letters are allowed. Not every college even accepts a letter. So a student may say, UW doesn't take letters, but I'm going to send it anyways. UW is not going to read that letter. So if the student sends it, it just won't be pulled, won't be a part of the application. Same with like the UC schools, they do not accept letters of recommendation. If a student needs a recommendation letter from us, we do have a process. So we have a counselor letter of recommendation survey in Maya that the students are to fill out. So going back to that deadline, hopefully they can, if they know they need a counselor letter, and it would say that on the admissions page of every school's website, whether they needed a counselor or a teacher or either or, have them complete that counselor letter of rec survey in Maya. It's under the dashboard. It just helps us write the best letter possible for them. The more information they can give us, the more personal the letter will be, and the more that we can share things that aren't covered in their Common App to give the college that overall view of the amazing students that you have. And just a little note, Recommenders spend their evenings, their weekends, they're outside of their daily work time writing these amazing letters for your students. So I'd really love to bring back the thank you note idea. It really does put a smile on the face of a teacher or a counselor after they spent the time to write this letter for your student.
Oh, sorry, moving ahead too fast. All right, great. So I'm back. You guys have put some really great questions into the Q&A, and I'm going to answer one right now just because it has to do with letters of rec. And I thought it was, relevant enough that we address it here. We'll do the rest of the Q&A when we get through the next couple of slides. So a number of students requested a letter from Mr. Finnegan last spring. And we've talked to a few of them already this year. He usually writes quite a few letters. So if your student has requested a letter from Mr. Finnegan and they've already talked to him, they talked to him maybe last spring, is when they should have done this. He is still planning on writing those letters. So we have him all set up in Maya. He's going to be able to write and submit letters. So the student just still needs to check in with their college counselor. We will help them put the official request in on Maya. If they haven't communicated with him maybe this year, we do have a contact email for him that we can give those students, but we probably want to do that if they come into our office. So, and good. So yeah, if they're like, oh, I don't know what to do about Mr. Finnegan's letter, he is still going to write those letters. If your student has not asked Mr. Finnegan yet, they're probably not going to get a letter from him. That's okay. That's what we'll talk about in our meeting. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit more about a little bit further down the road here. So, I want to talk about mid-year reports, mid-year transcripts. This is going to be a little kind of like post-application. We're going to start worrying about this in December and January because colleges are going to start asking for first semester grades if they haven't already decided to admit or not the student, right, the applicant. So that's why first semester grades really do count. They are going to be part of an application, especially if the student is maybe on the bubble at a college that they're applying to. Maybe they apply early action. Maybe they're applying regular decision and they're applying in January, right? Those are going to be colleges that are going to want to see that student's first semester grades. They're going to start reminding the student about this in usually in December. They'll start saying like, hey, send us your first semester grades. We will take care of that. So the college counselors will take care of it. Your student doesn't have to do anything else. They should very much not panic because what's going to happen, this is going to happen this year, I can guarantee you, because it happens every year, is that college is going to say, we have not gotten your first semester grades yet, and it's going to be January. And our first semester doesn't end until the end of January. And then we turn around really fast as much as we can and get those transcripts to colleges. So colleges start saying, we don't have it, and students start freaking out and parents start freaking out. It's okay. Colleges, they know exactly when our first semester grades are going to come to them. We tell them in our profile, we tell them in our supporting documentation. They get the automated emails and everybody starts losing their mind. So just don't do that, right? It's going to be fine. We will get the students' first semester grades to the colleges that need them. So just again, that's a heads up. It's always kind of fun, but it stresses people out. And we talk to colleges about this. It's one of those things that comes up like, hey, could you tone down the emails that tell them they don't have their first semester grades yet because they're in our office having kittens, and they don't. They never do. So financial aid. Let's talk a little bit about this. We have a financial aid night coming up. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of these. A couple of these items. I want you guys to bookmark September 25th. So that's in 9 days. We are going to have another evening presentation with some folks from the University of Portland. Ms. Cipolla will be on that one for sure. And they're going to cover much broader financial aid process. What I do want to talk about is the getting ready to fill out the FAFSA. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It opens on October 1st. You can actually start your FAFSA process now. Now, a lot of folks kind of think like, do I need to fill out the FAFSA because of my family's or my particular financial pictures? I always recommend doing that, highly recommend doing that. Many colleges have started requiring the FAFSA in order to consider that applicant for merit scholarship. So that's the free money merit scholarship. But they have to have a FAFSA with it because they want to consider them for financial aid before they, anyway, it's a whole thing. It's hopefully like this last year, maybe it was 2 cycles ago, FAFSA got a little gnarly, if you remember. Last year, I think was a lot smoother. But it's good to kind of get into that process now, start getting your materials together, start working your way through that. It's probably going to be required if not at every single college, like pretty much every college a student applies to. So get to FAFSA.gov, start that process, and it'll open on October 1, and try to fill it out as soon as you can. And then again, bookmark September 25th. We'll do another Zoom. We'll have some like college admissions and financial aid folks on that call that are going to be able to speak to it in a lot more detail than we have time for tonight. I do want to touch on scholarships. So thinking a little bit about like things like merit scholarships and independent scholarships. When we talk about scholarships, we're talking about the free money, the money that you don't have to pay back. They're not loans. It's not work study where you have to kind of work for it. It's an award from the school that doesn't have to be repaid. Most of the scholarship money that your student gets is going to come directly from the institution, the college they're applying to, as a merit scholarship, right? They won't have to fill out another application. They will just be considered with their application to that college or university, right? So that's where most of that scholarship money comes from. There might be additional scholarships the student could apply to at that particular college. So this is where, Aaron mentioned this a couple of times. I'll say it again. Checking the school's financial aid and scholarship website, their specific website on their page, is a really important step in this process. And again, thinking about your role, that could be something that you and your students sit down and do together. Let's look at the financial aid process for this particular college. Maybe they're going to require the FAFSA. They might actually want to see another form of documentation in addition to the FAFSA. So there could be some additional steps for that particular college. When students start talking about applying to scholarships, a lot of the time what they're talking about are independent scholarships or third-party scholarships, and that's where they might need to go research those. They might need to apply for those. There are some great resources. Start with Maya. Go to Maya, go to resources. There is a doc that's linked in there that has links to websites advising on how to navigate the financial aid and scholarship process. There are a couple of the ones that we have on this slide are goingmerry.com and thewashboard.org. Those are pretty good, robust scholarship search websites. What I tell students, kind of when we're thinking about like when should I start applying for these independent scholarships, again, not from the university, but from like third parties, from businesses, from foundations, nonprofits. That timeline is going to be, I say, all senior year. Okay, so right now, I would say in the fall especially, focus on getting your applications into college, finish that, and as you're wrapping that up, that's when you can shift to going to these independent scholarship sites and trying to find college or scholarships that might fit. That might fit that student's profile, right? So again, Going Merry, Washboard, there are a number of other ones. So really good kind of exercise to go for. If they check now, they might see a handful of scholarships that they qualify for. If they check back in a couple of weeks, they might see a bunch more. If they check back in end of November, they're going to see even more. So this is kind of a cyclical, like they'll see more and more of these scholarships as they move through senior year. I find that there's actually a pretty big spike in independent scholarship applications in like March and April. That's kind of when we see a lot of students coming in and needing documentation or support with those applications. So if your student needs help with this, again, that's something that they can come in, check in with us on. They might need a letter of recommendation. They can get that from a teacher. If they need it from their counselor, that's great. They can come in and talk to their college counselor. very often the college or those independent scholarships don't need those letters of recommendation. But if they do, make sure that they ask early, because sometimes it's a little gnarly getting those that documentation in like the day before the scholarships deadline. But we do try. But again, have them communicate, remind them to come in if they have questions about that. Okay, so just kind of last couple of slides here. We just kind of want to talk a little bit about the sort of big picture again, thinking all the way through this process. The really important pieces are organization and following directions, and checking your email and communicating. Fundamentals, right? Focus on the process here, of making sure that you're helping your student with, especially that organization piece as things get a little more complicated. Aaron mentioned the application portals. Like after they apply, they're going to get access to their student portal. That is a whole nother level of organization that they might need some support with, right? So help them with that. Help them work on those things, making sure they're meeting those deadlines. If your student is not applying early action, right? Maybe they're applying to a rolling admission college or two. Maybe they're applying to colleges that are just regular decision. Maybe they have like January or February deadlines, or their deadlines are even later. We really would encourage them to target December as like their own internal deadline to apply to those colleges. It'll get them finished with the application before Christmas, which is really nice. And then it avoids them running into these January deadlines that are coinciding with the end of first semester, when they're trying to focus on studying for finals or wrapping up projects and papers and all of that stuff. So avoiding that as best you can. If your student has later deadlines or rolling deadlines, December is really what we want to be thinking about. But other than that, like the bulk of our students are going to be applying to a handful of November 1, November 15th, December 1st deadlines. And then, as always, communication, communication, communication. Thinking ahead a little bit, there are some essay and application support days. I have the dates on the next slide. Those are on Maya. So if your student's thinking like, hey, I need to connect with my counselor because we need to go over my application, we need to go over my essay, we have application help drop-in dates coming up here in September, October, and into November. There are also a lot of virtual resources for college application support, their virtual tours. If your student, we're meeting with a lot of seniors right now, and I'll ask them, hey, have you toured? Have you visited some of these colleges? And, very rarely does a student visit all of the colleges they're applying to. Like almost never happens. The world's too big. Their big list's too big, right? It's expensive to go travel. Colleges do a lot with their virtual events to try to connect with students that aren't able to make it to their campus, which is great. Check out those on the college's website. Again, research that scholarship info on the website. Lots of places to find application help out there. And then, yeah, these are the late start dates. We have some coming up in September. We have some in October and November. A couple of additional events that we want to highlight. One is on October 9th, which is PSAT day. So seniors have Thursday off. Friday is on the 10th is the faculty retreat, right? So you guys have a 4-day weekend. If you haven't already, planned your trip wherever you're going, 9 to 11 a.m. on that Thursday, we're going to have some college admissions representatives. So folks who read applications for a living are going to be on campus, and we're going to do an essay writing workshop with seniors. So it's definitely not something where we want a student coming in to that workshop without having started their essay. It's probably going to be more for not final drafts, but maybe close to final drafts, right? Or maybe even a final draft. And you just want to have somebody from the other side of the desk give you some feedback on it. That's a really great experience. We're really excited to be able to bring that back this year. And then on October 22nd, we've done this the last couple of years. It's actually been really, really beneficial, I think, for students. So we have a joint college visit with San Diego State and Cal Poly. And they use the same application. It's the Cal State Apply application. And it is a very it's a weird application. I'll just say it. Like how you enter all of the stuff, it's not super intuitive. So their reps actually, they understand that. They know that they're working within that system. They're going to be here on October 22nd, and they're going to host a session where they're going to talk about their application, but they're also, or their schools. They're going to talk about their schools, but they're going to talk about their applications too, right? So they're going to do a little like actual workshop with students to work on the Cal State Apply application, which isn't due until December. That first, I think it's December 2nd, but October 22nd is that date. So those are a couple of plugs. There's, again, a lot more events in Maya. Have your students check it out. Please have them sign up. That might be a good exercise to do over the next couple of days, is get them onto Maya, get them look at the events together, see what colleges are visiting, see what dates might work for them to come in for extra help. In terms of extra help, though, I'll remind, like, have them check in with us. Like, if you feel like your students, like things are escalating, right? Stress levels kind of creeping up and it's not coming down. One of the best things you can do as a parent is say, hey, let's write an email. You sit down, I'm going to help you write an email to your college counselor and say, hey, Mr. Russell, can we check in tomorrow, right? Hit send. I'm going to get them the next day, right? I'll respond to them. We'll find a time to meet. We're here before school for office hours. We're here after school for office hours. Lunches are a great time to check in. There's usually other times during the day that we're able to grab students and talk to them. We want to hear from them first. Help us get connected with them. Make sure that we're, making sure that we're on the same page, right, with them and their college admissions representatives, advisors, all of those other things. So, okay, let's go here. So we have some Q&A time. And I noticed, and Aaron, if you want to, I don't know if you've taken a look at the Q&A, maybe have one
Yep,
queued
I
up.
got some that I can answer.
Perfect. Why don't you kick us off?
Okay. Somebody asked, do students list weighted or unweighted GPA on the Common App? Great question. They list their weighted GPA. And just so you know, in Maya, under the resources tab, we have an application guide that we put together that answers a bunch of these, unique Common App questions. For example, do I use weighted, unweighted? What is the class size? How do I log UW in the high school courses? That is all on a document in Maya under resources application guide. So yes, use weighted GPA. Another question is, should students use their personal or Blanchette email in the Common App? Good question. It is up to the student. Whichever email they use, it needs to be an email that they're checking regularly. So if they do not look at their personal email ever, maybe let's use the Blanchette. But it's really up to the student as long as they check that email. That's why we do that Common App link to Maya, so that whatever email address that they did use, it's all linked there. Another question would be, do colleges see what classes a senior is taking in the spring, even though they apply in the fall? Yes. So we actually just uploaded transcripts into Maya. So your student can view that in Maya under Maya Drive. You will see the official document that we are sending to colleges, and it lists their complete senior year schedule on that transcript. Obviously, no grades. Grades don't go on there until end of January when the semester ends, but colleges do see their senior year courses. They also need to list those courses in their Common App. So the college kind of sees it two places. But yes, they do know what classes they're taking, and that does go into the admissions decision.
Perfect. I'll grab one here. So we had a question about common application and applying early action versus regular decision for schools. And can you apply early action to some schools and regular decision to other schools on the Common App? And the answer is absolutely, right? So Common App gives the student control over what application deadline they're hitting and applying only to the college they're applying to, if that makes sense. So if they're ready to submit their Santa Clara application and they're applying early action, and that's the only school that they're ready to apply to because they finished the supplements, but they haven't finished supplements to other colleges, they can send that application off to Santa Clara or to Notre Dame or wherever, and be done with that. They can check that one off, but they will have not applied to any other colleges, and they can still make changes to the rest of the Common App even after they've applied, right? So that kind of comes into like, there's a little kind of thought on, if you're telling a college you're reporting test scores to one college but on not another college, you can actually add your test scores into Common App, submit to one college, take those test scores out of Common App, submit to another college. We can work with them on that if they feel like they're that in the weeds. That's usually a little, not everybody needs to worry about doing stuff like that. But if that happens to be the case, you can do that. So you have a lot of control. Your student has control over specifically which applications to send and when. Okay. And then I think we got a couple more questions here. The workshop on October 9th on PSAT Day, can they drop in or do they need to register for it? We are asking them to register, right? It is, I mean, if a senior shows up on October 9th, we're not going to like tell them to go home, but please register, because we actually do need to worry about where we are hosting this event. And we want to prep ourselves and the reps that we're inviting for the number of students so that we're able to make this event work. So if we know how many students are coming in advance, that is going to make it a better experience for them. So yes, please have them register. We would love to see them on October 9th, so that we can work with them on their essays. Let's see here, and checking the Q&A again. Aaron, I think you're typing this answer already. I'll just answer it because I do think it's relevant. So Veracross, we're still getting up and running on Veracross, guys. So our academic office has done yeoman's work getting us into Veracross and out of Skyward. Thank heaven, right? It's been so nice, but it's not quite done with that transition. So historical grades will end up in Veracross at some point, but if you're helping your student fill out, let's say, the common application, have them pull their grades off of their transcript, which they can find on Maya under Maya Drive. It's there right now. So if if this has been a question for you guys and you're like, hey, how do we know what grades you got when you were a freshman? Go knock on your kid's door right now and say, hey, I know where we can find your transcript. It's in Maya Drive. We're going to go get it right now and take a look at it, right? So that is going to be the version that gets sent to colleges when we send your final, or the student's official transcript to colleges. It'll look just like that. So they can see it. They'll see exactly what the colleges are seeing. If they have any questions about that, it's a different format than the one that was in there, just because we moved Veracross. They have a different transcript format for us, which is lovely. If there are any questions about that, please have them reach out to their college counselor and we can help them.
Another question about the essay writing day on October 9th. Can a student just pop in for a short time, or do they have to stay there the duration 9 to 11? Absolutely not. They do not need to stay. They could stay and get their essay read for 5 minutes and then take off. So it's completely open and drop in for them. They could get it read by one rep. They can wait and have it read by another. So they do not need to stay the whole time.
All right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. There will probably be, we're going to have a good number of seniors there. So, probably budget an hour for sure. But yeah, you don't need to stay for 2 hours. Okay, I have a WUI question. So the Western Undergraduate Exchange. So I'm going to make a note here because I think we probably should put a slide on for next year about WUI. I don't believe, although it might, we can talk to Ms. Cipolla about this as we're planning our financial aid night. So the question is, are we going to be talking about the Western Undergraduate Exchange at our financial aid information night next, I can't remember what day it is, Thursday, I think. We probably can. But if you're wondering about the Western Undergraduate Exchange, the WUI, it's a fun thing to say. Make sure, as of like right now, the thing that you want to be focused on or helping your student focus on is getting onto that college's website and looking at their financial aid and scholarship information, because that is where you're going to find the best information about how that particular college is handling the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program for this cycle. Most colleges are pretty consistent with how they handle WUI, but there are some colleges who do things differently every year, right? And you want to make sure that you and your student know how is this school using the WUI program. And for those of you who aren't sure what WUI is, it is, think of it as something of a tuition exchange in the Western public colleges in the Western United States. Not every public college is part of the WUI program. A lot of them are. So it's good if your student's applying to places like Utah, Boise State. I think Oregon State would be another one that a lot of students get WUI scholarship money for. And I guess I said scholarship. It's not really a scholarship, but a lot of colleges handle it like a scholarship. So there are academic criteria that a student might need to meet. There are potentially, they might use the WUI for specific majors. So that's the other detail that you want to look at. So definitely that is exactly why you want to be looking at the school's financial aid and scholarship page, because that's where you're going to find the most up-to-date information about WUI. Okay.
A couple more questions. Does a
Go for it.
transfer student need a transcript from their previous school? Yes, they do. We have it. That's something our registrar would have asked for. We will handle uploading that transcript to Maya and sending that on your student's behalf. So if your student attended another school during their high school 4 years, we will send that transcript to colleges. Another question, does Blanchette rank? We do not. So in the Common App, your student will select none. As Blanchette does not rank.
Yeah. And then back to the FAFSA. The question is, we do talk about like having students do the work, right? This is their process. What about the FAFSA? Like, where does that leave that? So I kind of say FAFSA is a joint operation, right? Most of what's going to go in the FAFSA is actually going to be a parent and guardian's information, right? So it's your financial picture, your tax information. So that'll be stuff that they probably never really even knew any of this stuff existed. So you can be definitely a little more in the driver's seat on filling out the FAFSA. But I've had a lot of students who have really they've done most of the FAFSA like with their parents on their own, right? So that's a little more, definitely parent might need to be a little more hands-on for FAFSA. Absolutely. All right. Okay. Oh, and last one here for right now. Well, you can throw one more in there. We have a few more minutes. High school classes in middle school. That's a great question. So there are a handful of students who might have taken a high school class or like a high school level class at whatever middle school they were in. Do they need a transcript from that middle school? I don't believe so. Typically not. Like I've never had to get a middle school transcript for a college application. So I'm going to say no. The exception to that is if that middle school class is necessary to have that student meet a minimum application requirement. Okay. And I'll just back up for a second here too and say that, when we're working with our students on their junior meeting, junior forecasting meetings, and then again, when we're meeting with them as seniors, we're making sure that they're on track to meet college entrance requirements. So that's something that we're checking with them. Hopefully they're checking that too, right? To make sure there is some nuance there sometimes with, years required of particular credits in particular subject areas. So where we kind of like might come into that is if a student, for whatever reason, doesn't meet all of the college's required courses, like number of years of X, Y, and Z, but this middle school, high school class will get them over that line. That might be a conversation that we would have with them, or they might ask us that question. So so the answer to that's no, but maybe. But that gets into like, I mean, I've seen that maybe a couple of times in 20 years, right? So we're not talking about anything that significant. Colleges are really only interested in what a student has done in high school. So even if they've taken a high school course in middle school, that's going to mean at Blanchette, they're going to be an accelerated level for that subject area, usually math. And that just means they're that year advanced, right? They started in geometry because they took algebra. They started in algebra 2 trig because they took geometry as a high school course in middle school. That's something that college is absolutely going to see, and that'll be something they'll, get credit for, I guess, as the college is looking at their academic history. If that makes sense. Cool. All right. That's a wrap. Hey, what did I say? I said an hour and 20 to an hour and 30, and we're spang on an hour and 25. So it's like I've done this before, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
So thank you guys for coming. Again, this recording is going to be up on the website, hopefully end of day tomorrow, latest on Thursday. Look for it there. We love your kids. It's been a lot of fun starting the school year with them. Hopefully you're enjoying them too in this kind of kicking off senior year. It's a lot of fun and exciting. Hopefully not too stressful yet, but we will be seeing you guys later. Thanks for being here.